You think you've seen every isekai? Nah, my friend, you've just seen the mainstream ones. Today, we're diving deep into 12 underrated isekai gems that deserve way more love, respect, and binge time. Number 12, The 12 Kingdoms. Starting strong with a classic that everyone claims to have watched, but absolutely didn't. The 12 Kingdoms. This show drops our protagonist Yoko Nakajima into a politically twisted, war-torn fantasy world that's equal parts beauty and brutality. Think Narnia, but if the wardrobe led to trauma and existential dread. The story isn't your typical overpowered MC gets all the waifus nonsense. Nope, Yoko actually struggles. She gets betrayed, suffers, and earns her place as a ruler. It's like watching a college student figure out adulthood, except with dragons and divine beasts. The world building? Insane. Every kingdom feels alive, with its own lore and messed up politics. It's dark, mature, and surprisingly realistic for early 2000s anime. You'll start it thinking, just one episode, and next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. and you're questioning your own leadership potential. Kicking it old school again with the vision of Escaflown. Yeah, that anime your older cousin swore was peak fantasy back in the VHS era, and they weren't wrong. Escaflown throws Hitomi, a high school girl, into the magical world of Gaia, where giant mechs called Gaimelefs duke it out in the middle of medieval politics and destiny nonsense. Imagine Attack on Titan meets Final Fantasy, but with tarot cards and way too many nosebleeds. What makes this one hit hard is the balance between romance, action, and that wild 90s soundtrack that sounds like someone dropped an orchestra in a thunderstorm. The animation still slaps, and Van Fernel, that boy had the early 2000s emo vibe before it was cool. If you want something old, weird, and way deeper than expected, this is your next binge. Kicking off with number 10, Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions, the isekai that said, let's make dying in a fantasy world actually depressing. Forget power fantasies, this one's about a group of people who wake up in another world with no memories and no skills. They struggle to survive, like, really struggle. You'll watch them fight goblins and realise goblins are terrifying when you're weak and broke. The pacing is slow, but that's the point. It's grounded, emotional, and the animation is pure watercolour beauty. You'll cry over campfires, friendships, and food. Yeah, food. It's basically what would happen if you got isekai'd and didn't have plot armour. No divine sword, no level 999 stats, just anxiety and teamwork. Grimgar is a reality check for anyone who thought being isekai'd was fun. Spoiler, it's not. Sliding to number 9 with Ascendance of a Bookworm, or as I call it, the most wholesome isekai about being a book nerd in the Middle Ages. Main girl Min gets reincarnated in a world where books are rare luxury items, and instead of becoming some sword-wielding goddess, she says, nah, I'm making a library. It's cozy, smart, and surprisingly emotional. Mine isn't fighting monsters, she's fighting poverty, classism, and the struggle of having frail health. She's like a nerdy entrepreneur in a fantasy economy. The show nails world building in ways most isekai can't. You'll find yourself fascinated by how paper is made, and that's kind of magic. If you're tired of overpowered heroes and want something that feels human but still magical, this one's a must-watch. Plus Mine sass? Legendary. Landing on number 8, The Faraway Paladin, where a baby gets raised by 3 undead legends and somehow turns out wholesome instead of traumatized. The first half of this show, pure character development gold. You've got a ghost priest, a skeleton warrior, and a mummy mage acting as parental figures. It's like the Addams Family meets Full Metal Alchemist. Will, our MC, grows up learning love, faith, and battle from literal corpses, and it somehow works. The second half dives into classic isekai adventuring, but what makes it stand out is the emotional writing and world-building depth. Yeah, it gets preachy at times, but the faith versus morality themes hit harder than expected. And the soundtrack? Straight up heavenly. If you're into emotional fantasy with big feels and smaller explosions, this one's a hidden gem you'll want to protect at all costs. Looking at number 7, Outbreak Company, the only isekai brave enough to ask, what if Japan tried to colonize another world using anime culture? Yep, the government sends an otaku ambassador to spread manga, gaming, and maid cafes to a fantasy kingdom. It's equal parts hilarious and terrifying. This show is meta as hell. It pokes fun at anime tropes while also exploring cultural imperialism. Like somehow this absurd premise has layers. And the jokes? Peak otaku humor. You'll either be laughing your head off or questioning society. MC Shinichi is the definition of nerd with a mission. He's surrounded by elves, maids, and knights, and still manages to make insightful commentary about Mo culture. Honestly, it's fun, ridiculous, and smarter than it has any right to be. Perfect if you want comedy with your fantasy chaos. Crashing into number 6. Drifters, the testosterone-fueled fever dream, where historical warriors are thrown into another world to duke it out. We're talking samurai, knights, warlords, all in a deathmatch fantasy setting. Think Fate Zero, but with more blood, chaos, and questionable sanity. Toyohisa, the main guy, is basically a walking war crime with charisma. The animation crisp, the fights violent, the humor darker than your browser history. It's made by the same creator as Hellsing Ultimate, so expect top-tier insanity. This show doesn't care about power scaling, it's all about strategy, grit, and spectacle. Drifters is that rare anime that balances humor and savagery perfectly. You'll find yourself laughing at one scene and gasping at the next. It's criminally underrated and deserves way more hype. At number 5, the saga of Tanya the Evil, where a reincarnated salaryman becomes a tiny blonde war demon with the personality of a military strategist and the soul of pure chaos. Tanya is basically what happens when Hitler and Megumin fuse: unhinged, tactical, and terrifyingly efficient. The show turns isekai tropes into a philosophical war epic, asking, can faith exist in a world built on logic and violence? But also, explosions. Lots of explosions. The world-building slaps, the battles are cinematic, and Tanya's smug little face is meme-worthy perfection. You'll love her, hate her, and quote her monologues at 3 a.m. This anime isn't for the faint of heart, but if you love morally grey MCs and military politics, this one's your jam. At number 4, The Familiar of Zero, the OG isekai harem fantasy before it became a formula. Our MC Saito gets summoned by a tsundere mage named Louise who treats him like trash, and somehow it's still entertaining. It's chaotic, romantic, and so early 2000s, it practically smells like dial-up internet. Yeah, it's tropey as hell, but it's comfort food anime. It's the show that walked so ReZero and Konosuba could sprint. Louise might be an emotional terrorist, but her chemistry with Saito is peak we argue because we care. Plus, the world's magical politics are surprisingly deep if you look past the fan service. It's nostalgic, dramatic, and hilariously over the top. A must-watch for anyone who loves that classic anime flavour. Crashing into number 3, El Hazard, The Magnificent World, the hidden 90s gem that time forgot. And trust me, number 3, it'll mess with your head in the best way possible. It's one of the earliest isekai ever made, and it went hard. Students get transported to a mysterious world full of ancient tech, princesses, and interdimensional chaos. The mix of comedy, action, and romance is wild. You've got a dude turning into a literal woman, a villain who flirts harder than your ex, and a magical civilization on the edge of collapse. It's like Slayers meets Stargate, with enough weird energy to power a convention. Sure, it's dated, but it's the kind of old-school weird that makes you love anime all over again. Sliding into number 2, Now and Then, Here and There, aka the happiest isekai if happiness was replaced with trauma. This anime doesn't play around. Our boy Shu gets thrown into a desolate world ruled by child soldiers and despair. It's emotional warfare in animated form. No fan service, no power-ups, just pain, moral questions, and raw storytelling. Every episode punches you in the gut, but it's important. It's one of those shows that sticks with you long after the credits roll. If you want an isekai that's not about escapism but about humanity, this is it. Just keep tissues handy. And finally, number 1, Magic Knight Rebirth, the OG magical girl meets fantasy world crossover that deserves way more love. 3 schoolgirls get summoned to save a kingdom, and instead of fainting, they armor up, summon mechs, and go full Sailor Moon with swords. It's bright, emotional, and beautifully written. The art screams 90s nostalgia, and the plot actually evolves into something tragic and powerful. These girls don't just fight monsters, they question destiny itself. This show laid the groundwork for half of modern isekai and magical girl series, yet barely anyone talks about it. It's pure anime magic. Heart, humour, heartbreak, and hella nostalgia all rolled into one. And that's our lineup of 12 unknown isekai bangers you've been sleeping on. Which one surprised you most? Drop your pick in the comments, hit that like button if you found your next binge, and don't forget to subscribe for more underrated anime gems every week. Stay weeb, stay awesome. Emeverse out.